Our second reading for this morning comes from the book of Hebrews. In the verses prior to our reading, there has been a cataloging of great heroes of the faith who have gone before, which set the stage for the words we now hear. Listen for what the Spirit would say to us. Yet all these, though they were commended for their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better, so that they would not, apart from us, be made perfect. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, who for the sake of the joy that was set before him endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I'm probably not telling you anything that most of you don't already know when I say that we are living in an age of experts and consultants. Whether you work in business or in technology or in a nonprofit or in politics or in education or in the church, there are experts and consultants who can come and help you revision who you are, who can tell you how to do better the things that you are already doing, or can show you ways to discover new things that you should be doing. And now some of these experts and consultants are quite helpful and quite good. Some of them have just found a new racket from which to make a fast buck, and some of them look like they stepped straight out of a Dilbert cartoon strip. But regardless of how helpful they may be, I'm convinced that the mere existence of these armies of experts has led to general feelings of inadequacy and incompetence on a lot of our parts. Or maybe I'm simply reading my own experiences onto the feelings of others. If you were to go into my office, and assuming you could figure out where to look amidst all the mountains of clutter, you might see that bookshelf that is filled with books, all written by experts who want to help me be a better pastor. And I'm not talking about the books on preaching or books on teaching or books on doing theology. They have their own shelf. This shelf is filled with nothing but books on church leadership, church strategic planning, church administration, and so on. And some of these books are wonderful. Some of them have given me keen insights into facets of my call to be a pastor. But on the whole, I have to say that the primary effect is simply one of being overwhelmed. If only I could learn to better understand the personality types of others, to be a more non-anxious presence. If only I could remember all 12 keys to being an effective church. If only I could recall how it was I'm supposed to connect to secular people. If I just knew how to write an energizing mission statement, and if I had more training in being a spiritual leader, and if I knew all the secrets of developing a truly effective staff team, and only a few more things that come from books and conferences and workshops that I have attended. Well, if only I could do all of that, maybe I would know what I was doing. And of course, with each of these methods and programs that comes from these books and conferences, there are examples of congregations where wonderful things have happened as a result. Churches that were dying on the vine have sprung to life and are growing like never before. members who were unmotivated and inactive are now leading programs that people from other churches come to observe and copy in their churches. And stewardship programs that were once only barely pulling in enough to produce a bare bones budget are now so flush in money that they have to envision new ministries for the church. And I know that all of these examples are meant to inspire, to show that yes, it is possible to do grand new things in a church, in a congregation. But I think, again, overall the primary effect is to leave a lot of pastors feeling overwhelmed and inadequate. And I think the same thing can happen with congregations. I think it's a good idea sometimes for people on the worship team to go look at worship in other churches and see what they're doing that maybe we would want to try. And it can be nice to go and look at those new ideas for Sunday school that are going so well at the church down the street. But I have seen church leaders come back from such visits more depressed than excited and inspired. They have seen things that look grand and wonderful, and they just go, well, we could never do that. Now, I should add that I have had people come here and see things that we've done, well, like the block party we had last month, and say, wow, how did y'all pull that off? We could never do that. The fact is that even the best churches, the best congregations feel inadequate at times. And it seems that the writer of Hebrews is addressing such a congregation that is feeling inadequate and not up to the task. Perhaps the enthusiasm of the original generation, the first generation of that church, has begun to wane. It wasn't easy being a Christian in those days. There was sporadic persecution. The early hope of the first members that Jesus was going to be back any day now had started to fade. And we don't really know what the exact situation is in this church that is addressed by this letter, but it's clear that Hebrews is addressed to a congregation that's not feeling all that fired up. Now, most Bibles label it the letter to the Hebrews, but it's really not a letter. It's a sermon. A sermon that hopes to reinvigorate its congregation. And as this sermon marches towards its conclusion, it rattles off a number of giants of the faith. It, in the verses right before we picked it up, remembers Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. It recalls Moses and David and the prophets. And you could think that this might backfire, that listing all of these great and grand and monstrous heroes of the faith could leave the Hebrews feeling inadequate, this congregation feeling not up to the task. But then the sermon takes a surprising turn. It says, yet all of these, though they were commended for their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better, so that they would not, apart from us, be made perfect. Wait a minute. These giants of the faith, these faith founders, need us in order to be made perfect.